Hi, it's Dre Griggs with Obsidian Wisdom. Today we'll be answering the question, what are the 6 types of procrastination and how do I overcome them? When it comes to procrastination, there are 6 different types of procrastination. And when you think about procrastination, more times than not, we're often telling people, hey, stop being lazy, stop being distracted. And we're not really getting to the heart of the problem. When you read in scripture and it says, with all you're getting, get understanding, you're going to see the importance of understanding today. When you talk about the 6 different types of procrastination, they require 6 different strategies to overcome your procrastination. It's not that you're not motivated, it's not that you're lazy, it's not even that you don't want to do it, you just aren't going at it the right way. So we will discuss each of these. I'll share which ones I am, but realistically you're going to probably have 2 dominant ones, one that you can think of a few situations, and then the other 3 are going to be kind of one-offs, not very common at all. So the first one is a perfectionist. Let me go ahead and read off the list. I'm pulling this data from Indiana State University. So the characteristics are, first, they tend to put forth excessive amounts of time and energy to make sure that everything they do is perfect. They tend to put off starting tasks due to a fear of failure or doubts about doing it the right way. They tend to see everything in life as things that have to be done, not necessarily what they want to do. So if you're a perfectionist, some strategies that you want to implement is you want to strive for excellence rather than perfection. You want to focus on realistic rather than ideal. You want to avoid all or nothing thinking. You want to change your have tos to want tos. And you want to give yourself a time limit for completing the task and make daily to-do lists that are short and practical. So for me, when it comes to being a perfectionist, I can tell you that I do suffer from this form of procrastination when it comes to my business. Oftentimes they say, look, the numbers say 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10 people will say yes. So you just go through the process and then the numbers will work themselves out. For me, someone who seeks perfection, it is very difficult for me to just accept that 1 out of 10 is successful. Whether you're talking about any form of marketing, whether you're talking about meetings and you're talking about clients, that is very difficult for me. And so I end up spending a lot of time thinking, how can I make this better? How can I get it to 8 out of 10 people say yes? How can I get it to 9 out of 10 people say yes? And as any entrepreneur knows, 9 out of 10 is actually a very difficult number to achieve. And so I end up spending a lot of time on the craft and not as much time just meeting with people, having conversations, and shaking hands. I'm always trying to refine my skills. I'm going for certifications. I read so many different books. And I do have to take a step back and say, you just got to get started. Let's go ahead and make this realistic. Let's go for excellence instead of perfection. And then I've started making to-do lists, which is something that I don't do very well. But my wife and my oldest daughter, they love to-do lists and they swear by them. So I started writing things down. It's not something that I do every day, but it is something that I'm working on. The second type of procrastination, they refer to as the dreamer. So the characteristics of a dreamer is they tend to recoil from anything that might be difficult or distressing. They tend to be passive rather than active. They tend to pay little attention to facts or details, making it hard to focus and perform difficult tasks. They tend to think of themselves as special people for whom fate will intervene, making hard work and efficiency unnecessary. So strategies for a dreamer to overcome procrastination are: train yourself to differentiate between dreams and goals. Develop the habits of thinking with 5 W's, that's what, when, where, who, and why, and 1 H, which is how. Change your wishes and like tos and try tos to wills. Change your some days or soon to specific times, and plan each major project in writing using a timeline and specifying each step that you need to take, and seek more interaction with other people. So the dreamer, that one I don't fall as much in, and when you find what my second major form of procrastination is, you'll know why. But a dreamer, often they are in their mind so much that it's very important for them just to write things down. It's very important for them to interact with other people so they can have a more realistic understanding of the process of something. The third form of procrastination is the worrier. So a worrier tends to be indecisive and often fail to commit themselves to specific decisions that they need to make. They tend to lack confidence in their own abilities, causing them to avoid or delay doing things. They tend to be dependent upon others for advice, reassurance, nurturance, and help. They tend to have high resistance to change, preferring the safety of the known over the risk of the unknown. So strategies for a worrier to overcome procrastination is recognize that making a decision is in fact a decision. You want to follow a 2-step decision-making process where you first commit yourself to your goal and then you determine what steps you'll take to achieve the goal. Change your I don't knows to one thing I do know is. Change your I can't statements to compound sentences where you start with I can't and then it ends with but I can. Each day, do at least one thing that you've been consciously putting off. Each week, do something that you're generally uncomfortable doing, and break down every large, intimidating project into an assortment of smaller, easier to manage projects. So if you feel overwhelmed, and that's often what you find, people who worry, they feel overwhelmed by many things. They feel it's a lot of different moving pieces where they can't figure out exactly where to start. It is a good idea to go ahead and calm yourself down, remind yourself that any decision is a decision, which includes doing nothing, and then you go ahead and put the strategy together and you make sure you give yourself small tasks to complete. Mel Robbins often says, look, if you're going to procrastinate, just commit to 5 minutes of doing something. If you do it for 5 minutes, then you'll see where it goes. When I wrote my first book, the couple of books that I read about writing, they said just commit to writing a paragraph or a page, and you'll find that you'll end up writing more than that paragraph, but just give yourself something small so that you'll be much more comfortable. Don't say I'm going to write a whole book, say I'm going to write a page. A page feels much better. If a page still feels too much, then say I'm going to write a paragraph. If a paragraph is too much, say you're going to write a couple of sentences. Either way, if you're making progress towards something, then you're not procrastinating, one, and two, you're actually moving towards your goal. And that is a really good feeling, which most likely will mean you'll end up doing a little bit more than what you committed to just because you got started. So the fourth form of procrastination is a defier. So a defier tends to see life in terms of what others expect or require of them to do, not what they themselves would like or want to do. They tend to avoid expressing negative feelings. Instead, they convey those feelings by procrastinating. They tend to use procrastination as a way of challenging authority, and they tend to be pessimistic in nature, undercutting their motivation to complete tasks in a timely manner. When it comes to strategies to overcome a defier's procrastination, you want to learn to view what someone else wants or expects of you as a request and not a demand. Mean what you say. The third one is if you haven't done something, own up to it. Then strive to act rather than react. Do what you know needs to be done. Try to work with a team, not against it. And do something specific that will satisfy you because it's done your way. So high level, when you think about a defier, this is going to be the person that when you go into the office, they feel like they don't want to be micromanaged. They want to be able to handle things on their own. And when they are micromanaged, they end up putting it off until that very last day. To where maybe the person comes in on Monday and is like, this has to be done by Friday. And Defier felt like, look, I already handle everything. I don't even know why you're asking me. It's already on my to-do list. You're bothering me. I was going to have it done today. But because you're bothering me, I'm going to go ahead and turn it in on Friday at 11:59 p.m. because you said it has to be done by Friday, and I'll get it done by Friday. And you end up creating the environment where your leadership believes that they have to manage you because you keep turning things in at the last moment, and it's actually getting you the opposite result that you want. It's actually very interesting when you think about it. So the fifth on our list is a crisis maker. So the crisis maker, this is going to be the people who wait till the last minute. And so their characteristics are they tend to first ignore the task, then feel intensely caught up in it when facing the undesirable task. They tend to dramatize situations, making themselves the center of attention. They tend to easily get bored and resist the dullness of doing things rationally and methodically. They tend to have the need to prove themselves by living on the edge. So strategies for a crisis maker to overcome procrastination is you want to identify other self-motivators besides stress. I get it, right? You say, look, at the last moment, I'm able to make the most amazing and beautiful results that I can ever make. That's fine. Stress motivates you, which is totally fine, outside of the fact that constant stress is not good for you. So find some other form of motivation. What else excites you besides stress? Second, you want to strive towards changing your thinking style from extremist and general to moderate and specific. You want to avoid overdramatic, polarizing language. When discussing a task or priority, try to focus on the positive or active rather than the negative or reactive. Figure out methods for handling things so that you can avoid or more successfully manage recurring crises. Create your own motivators to change a boring task to a more interesting one. And understand that you may not feel interested in something until you get involved in it. The thing about most crisis makers is we tend to think this is something that I don't really want to do, but I know it's something that I have to do. Or you feel like maybe a little bit of mixture of the worry where you feel a little overwhelmed And so it ends up being, well, I'll do it later when I feel less overwhelmed. Maybe when I check off some boxes, do some research. And then that would feed you into the perfectionist, where you're thinking, okay, well, if I just start working with some of this stuff and I can come up with the best process, then I won't be as nervous about it and I'll be able to get this work done. You can see how each of these forms of procrastination kind of feeds into another form, which is why they go together hand in hand. And before we get into the sixth form of procrastination, if you've been enjoying this video, I ask you to like and subscribe and share in the comments which form of procrastination you are. And the sixth and final type of procrastination is the overdoer. So the characteristics of an overdoer, they tend to suffer from low self-esteem, compelling them to take on more work than they can handle. They tend to have trouble saying no or asking for help. They tend to assume so many different responsibilities and roles that they easily get distracted from specific tasks and confused about priorities. They tend to lack true self-discipline, especially in regards to personal needs. They tend to find it very difficult to relax without feeling guilty or ashamed. And the strategies for an overdoer to overcome procrastination are to acknowledge the difference between priorities and demands. Try not to depend on others for approval. Focus your thoughts on how you're going to gain control over things, not how things are controlling you. Don't hesitate to say no to others when it's appropriate. Talk more about your options than your obligations. Make and follow daily to-do lists that make the best use of your time and energy. Enlist help whenever appropriate. Incorporate an ample amount of leisure activities into your life. Of these six types of procrastination, which one do you think are your top two forms? I can tell you for me that I'm an overdoer one. More times than not, everything that I'm working on, I get a lot of things accomplished these days. I may not get the most important things accomplished in a day, where I major in minor things. And I want to make sure that I'm majoring in major things. So you may come to my house and my house is clean, smells great, yard is mowed, the kids took them to the park, took them to the library, we had a great time. And then I sit down and get started on work, and I may be focusing on the smaller things before I start getting to the bigger things. As a result, I find that working with a to-do list helps me a lot more. It's very difficult for me to say no. I often want people to be able to rely on me, feel confident in my abilities to help them. And so I do procrastinate on very important things by doing everything else. Where I have to sit down each morning and say, these are the three things that I'm going to get done today, no matter what. And then that leads me into the second one, and that is a perfectionist. As I mentioned to you guys at the beginning, oftentimes when I am working on other things, it is because for me, I haven't figured out exactly the best way to do whatever it is I'm procrastinating on. So mowing the grass, I got that. I don't have to think about that. I know the best way for me to mow my grass, or at least I like the results that I'm getting. I know what clean looks like. It gives me immediate satisfaction as that's going on. Also, spending time with my kids, when is that ever a bad idea? And so I feel really good about these things, except at the end of the day, when I feel like I have to work like all night in the business because I have distracted and done so many of these other things that I haven't been able to do what I needed to do in the business, which makes it very difficult for me to take like leisure time, just as I said with the overdoer. You're doing so much stuff every day that it's very hard for you to take a break because the most important things that you needed to do, you didn't get done. And the most important things for me aren't getting done because of my perfectionist. And I feel like I haven't figured out the absolute best way, hands down, to get 100% results on all that I do. And so my perfectionism helps me in a lot of ways, but it also hinders me in other ways. And you'll notice on both of the strategies, it says that you have to make to-do lists. And so a to-do list works really well for me to get the results I want, but it's very difficult for me. I don't naturally write things on a list. And if you're wondering, the least likely type of procrastination for me is the dreamer. I am very optimistic by nature. I find the most difficult way to do things as a way for me to challenge myself and to prove how awesome I am, kind of a vibe. And so like I remember even when I was a kid, my dad was like, all right, there's two ways to tie a tie, and he showed me both of them, but he messed up and said, well, this is the easier way. And I said, well, I'm not doing that way. In my mind, I didn't say that to him. And then I practiced the more difficult way, and I don't even remember how to tie the tie the easier way. It's like one less or two less loops. I don't know. But in my mind, I was like, well, I don't want to do it the easier way. I want to do it the harder way. I'm sure the harder way is going to look better and people will know. And obviously people don't know. But I share that to say that I am someone who, because of my optimism, I believe that we're going to be able to get the result that we want. And it doesn't really matter how hard something is, because as long as one person did it, then that means it's possible. And if it's possible, then I can do it. If you like the video, I ask you to like and subscribe, and feel free to check out other Wisdometric videos if you're looking for ways to eradicate financial stress, generate passive income, and build a prosperous retirement strategy.